All right, I'm going to give you a video now about systems of inequalities word problems. So I've created a problem here, number one on your sheet, that you should read through before you really watch the video and see if you can sort out how you might set up some inequalities. I'll give you a heads up, there's more than 2 inequalities here that make this system. So I'm going to go ahead and pause. And if you're back now after trying to set it up, let's work through this. So we have this situation. Bob can work on one project and he can work on another one. So he can work on one project and make $6 an hour. He can also work up to 6 hours on a different project where he could make $9 per hour. Overall, he could not work more than 8 hours total between the two projects, but he needed to make more than $54 to buy a new set of bobblehead dolls. So we're supposed to come up with a system of inequalities, graph it, and show the possible numbers of hours he could devote to each project that would make him the money he needed to make. All right, there's a lot of things going on in this, and it might at first feel overwhelming. So let's sort of pull out some information. So we have, I'm going to make a little table here, and I'm going to have a part, I think I'll need 4 rows, 4 columns, I mean. So I'm going to have, all right, so I've got project 1 and project 2. Okay, so I have an hours situation. Okay, so hours, I know that the sum of the hours can't be any more than 8 hours. So I'm going to need some sort of inequality. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in an inequality for this. Got less than or equal to symbol I'm putting in there. So I know that whatever my hours has got to be less than or equal to 8 overall. I'll call project 1 X and project 1, the hours in project 1 X and the hours in project 2 Y. So my sum of those two has to be less than or equal to 8 because I cannot work any more than 8, but we can assume we could work 8 or we could work less than 8. Now we also have some information about the second project. And the second project, this is extra info on hours for second project. Okay, we know we've been given this little statement. He could also work up to 6 hours on a different project. So that doesn't tell us anything about X, so we're going to leave the X place blank. But we do know Y could be up to 6 hours. Okay, so there you have another more simple inequality. Y could be less than or equal to 6. Then we also know there's something about money. Okay, he needs to make more than $54. So he needs to make more than $54. We're going to have to insert another inequality symbol. And I go into my special characters. Okay, I need a greater than symbol here. Only I don't need a greater than or equal to, so I'm going to correct that because it says he needed to make more than $54. So we're just going to say more than. So we need to express the amount of money he could make on each project. Well, we're going to multiply the number of hours, X, for the first project times $6. So 6X. And we are also going to multiply the number of dollars he could make on the second project, Y. Y is the hours, by 9. So 9Y. So if I add these two together, that'll have to be greater than 54. Now, there's a little bit extra information. Can't be negative hours. Okay. So I'm just going to put this in the table itself. So we also probably can assume that x has to be greater than or equal to. I'm going to go ahead and insert that symbol again. So greater than or equal to 0. So x has to be at least 0, and y also has to be at least 0. So there has to be, so we have actually several inequalities here. We have one where it's x plus y. This is our total hours. X plus y is less than or equal to 8. And y is less than or equal to 6. And 6x plus 9y is greater than 54. X is greater than equal to, let's grab that up here. X is greater than equal to 0. And y is greater than or equal to 0. Okay, so I have 5 inequalities. So we need to go ahead and graph these in Desmos. So let's go into Desmos. You're going to graph them on paper, but I'm going to graph them on Desmos because it's easier to make the video that way. So I have my first one, x plus y. Oh, I left one out. Oh, no, I didn't. So actually, I'm going to go back into my workspace. I'm going to show you how we can take this inequality, y is less than or equal to 6, and y has to be greater than or equal to 0. We can actually make that a combined inequality, and we copy that here, and we make that 0. So y is anywhere from 0 to 6. So we go in here. Y is anywhere from 0 to 6, so that means we're going to have, I'm going to create some lines as my boundaries, y equals 6 and y equals 0. Y equals 0. So those are my boundary lines. And my boundary lines are basically saying I am anywhere from y can be anything above 0 and anything below 6. So my overlap shade is between these. So I'm just going to go ahead and plot that right there. And I have my border lines are solid lines because it's an or equal to inequality. All right. Now x has to be greater than or equal to 0. So I'll make an x equals 0 as a border line. And if x has to be greater than or equal to 0, it's everything this way as well. Now I want that to actually be part of, so I can go ahead and plot it as x is greater than or equal to 0. But I really don't want this zone here, and it's not going to be up here, but this overlap zone is starting to be an area that could be where my number of hours would be. So this overlap area is the solution for that part of the system, but we have more detail to get. So we also have this inequality. So this is in a simple standard form where my coefficients are 1 and 1. So I'm going to have, if x is 0, then y has to be 8. So I have a y-intercept at 0, 8. And I also, if y is 0, I'm going to have if y is 0, I'm going to have an x-intercept at 8 as well. So 8, 0. Only they are wholes because this is a, no, they are not wholes. What am I saying? It is a less than or equal to. So those are my locations there. I'm going to make a line that goes through them. So x plus y is less than or equal to 8. Actually, I didn't mean to give you that. I would make this my boundary line. It is a solid line. And then I would test 0, 0. 0 plus 0 is less than 8. So it will, in fact, be part of the shading. So 0, 0 is invited to the party. So we've already gotten the spoiler. It does shade that way. And there is that part of the inequality. So now I have this trapezoid zone that is part of my inequality. I have one last inequality to plot, and for this one, it's also in a standard form. It's going to be a dashed line because it's greater than. Okay, so now I'm going to use my X and Y intercept tools. I can either use my cheat codes or I can just say, all right, if X is 0, then I've got 9Y equals 54. That means I divide both sides by 9, and 54 divided by 9 is 6. So if X is 0, I have a Y intercept at 6. And then I also need to imagine if Y is 0, that'll be my X-intercept. If Y is 0, then I've got 6X equals 54. So I'm going to have an X-intercept at 9, 0. Now, of course, these are holes because this is not an or equal to inequality. So I will make them into holes. Okay. And so they are holes, as you can see here. Now I've got a line that I need to make that goes through them. And that line is going to be 6x plus 9y equals 54. Okay, this time I didn't put a spoiler. It is a dashed line because they are, it is not an or equal to inequality. And now I have my boundary. I've got to figure out which side is going to be shaded. All right, well, we test that out. We say, okay, 6 times 0 plus 9 times 0 is greater than 54, which means we're saying 0 is greater than 54, which is totally not true. So 0, 0 does not get invited to the party. That means we're going to be shading in the other direction. And so when we do the shading, we will be going this way. And now we have our overlap zone. It's this little sliver of possible hours right here. Now, one can work portions of an hour, so you're not going to have to worry as much about getting integer values, but it can be anything along this line, anything along this line, and not along this line, but anything in this multiply overlapping shaded zone here. I hope this video helped you. There is an answer key that is linked on Google Classroom for the rest of the problems in this worksheet. It's a Desmos answer key.